Okay, so as many of you know, we have these access to innovation talks where we strive to give you access to people who are knowledgeable about developing or supporting businesses in East Africa, and people who may not be on your radar, but who have good insights. And today we are fortunate to have with us Tom Apina. He's a partner and director at SustaiNet. He has more than 15 years of experience working with the agriculture sector in a number of East African countries. So I'm really glad that you are here today, Tom, and we are excited to hear what you can share with us. Oh, somebody has to mute. Okay, thank you. So the format of these access to innovation talks is that we have a presentation, which is about 20 to 25 minutes. And then that is followed by 20 minutes where all the participants are able to ask questions. You can pose your questions either in the chat below, and I will bring on the question. You can also raise your hand, or you can just interrupt. We hope and strive to make these interactive sessions, so please join in and ask any question that you have. So I think that is it from my side. I'm thrilled to have you, Tom, on board today, and please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Thomas, and to everybody, good morning. Here in Nairobi is 11:30, so it's morning for us, but it's a great pleasure to join this platform today and to make a presentation. In terms of the regional context, understanding the East Africa region, I'm very sure that all the facts are there, and many of you already know about this, that basically doing business in East Africa is very easy for us, but of course for somebody from a different part of the world, you need to understand the different dynamics, and some of the indicators which basically one would look at when you are venturing into a new market is, of course, you want to look at the ease of doing business index. You want to look at the corruption index. You want to look at how the movement in terms of goods and services, whether the region has a hub, and whether you are able to move your goods and services freely across the region. And of course, you want to look at the political economy in those regions. And in East Africa, we have a mix of that. We have I can say a very stable democracy in Kenya, but sometimes a bit messy. We have messy because there's a lot of freedom, and of course that freedom is good for business, because we also have very strong business associations which are able to voice their voices, and the governments are able to listen. We have other countries, for example, in Uganda, where we have the political environment is stable, but of course there's the authoritarianism, where we have a president, President Museveni has stayed for many years in power. And of course there's a push by the opposition to basically get him out, but that has not been very successful. So you have that kind of a situation. And Rwanda, for example, you also have a president who have stayed for long, but again, you have the president, the government controlling much of a number of sectors, and of course ensuring that everything moves as it's required, and any any opposition is basically dealt with. So, but then still the business is able to move, progress in positively. So we have a mix when we look at the regional context in East Africa. The presentation I want and the experience I want to share with you is basically going to focus on 4 countries: Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda. And we have other countries within the East Africa community, but I've chosen not to include those because these are the most significant economy in the region. So when we look at the opportunities which exist in this region, we have a rapid increasing purchasing power. We have a very strong middle class which is coming up. We, as you know, the demography in this region is more tilted towards the young. We have over 70% of our population is below 35 years of age. So we really have a very strong young population in all this country and the region. We have lots of talent, of course. We have a number of companies choosing to come to East Africa, mainly because of the existing talent, especially in the tech sector. We have also, depending on how you look at it, we have a multiple economy in one. What I mean here is there are different economies within the same. For instance, you have, we call it informal sectors, juakali, we call it in Swahili like that. Their economy, the way they do things may be different from the upper class or the middle economies, in that if you are to choose, for example, the human resource in terms of staff, you can basically, you have a lot of choices to make. You can get for the same job, you can get someone for different prices. It depends which part of the economy, which economy you would want to fall into. There's also a number of factors. There's increasing internet penetration in the region. And of course, that also means a number of government operations are getting digitized, and which is a good thing. And of course, accessibility is increasing. There's also a number of government initiatives in different countries, which are more tailored towards attracting investors. So you have export processing zones. They have their different tax incentives for foreign investors. So these are some of the opportunities you can look at, more specifically once it's clear which country you do want to go for. There's also the issue of security. This region is bordering Somalia, and in the past there were a lot of issues of insecurity, but there's been a lot of significant improvement in that. When you look at what should you do when you want to, when you are venturing into this market, I think it is important to stay under the radar initially until you are bearing. It is if you pop up too fast, then of course you may miss the learning points. So I think it's really important to stay under the radar until you really get your bearing. It's important to stay compliant. Compliant here is with all the rules, government, in terms of government regulations, depending on which sector you are interested in. It's really important that you stay compliant. Maintain long-term perspective of things. Definitely in business, you don't get, make your profits at once. You have to have a long-term perspective. Maintain strong local partnership. This is important, especially because there's a very strong move towards different countries in this region for buy Uganda, build Uganda, for example. There's a lot of strong move towards that. It's really important to understand the different ethnicity in the region and the different intercultural relationship before you really venture, because this is important, because that is the socio cultural dynamics that your business would be operating into. Then of course you can be able to, it's possible in all these countries that you can consider local registration or foreign branch. So this is all possible. There are challenges, a lot of it, but I think what is important is that corruption is an issue, but according to a survey which was done by the Danish embassy here, it is the 35% of Nordic companies in Kenya last year experienced corruption, but according to that survey, it was not considered critical. So this survey is also available. You can have a look at it. There is some level of red tape that you need to consider and know that that's possible. There's the rule of law, and there's litigation mentality, and so an example is if you are in a business with farmers, for example. It is possible that you have a contract with the farmers, but a farmer group, but they can still sell the products to other competitors. So you just need to have in mind that probably what contracts mean in your environment currently may be interpreted differently here. So you have to really understand the culture. You have to understand how things are done here before really you are able to set up the business. The cost of doing business is by the standard, as we looked at, is still considered high by the international standard. What really you should not do when you are here, and from a lot of experience, don't take sides in politics. And at the moment, it's political time in Kenya. Last year, it was in Uganda. So don't take sides in politics. Don't rely too much on the expatriates. I think there's a lot of local talent. So it's really important that you identify your niche and identify your contacts, local contacts, and get ideas from them, because they'll give you more practical ideas. And then you can be able to blend that with the expertise advice. Avoid taking shortcuts. And you should ensure that you drive on the right side of the road. That's different. Okay, so when you are planning to set shop in East Africa, again, there are opportunities here still. The company registration is easy and it is swift, and there's of course a number of offices in different capitals, so this is not a problem. There's a lot of office solutions that you'll be able to get. So in terms of setting up shop, everything, it's very easy compared to what it was maybe 10 years ago. And of course, it is in doing that, you have to stay compliant, consider local partners, and of course, aim to source local talents. There are a number of challenges in setting up the shop that it's really worth considering. That there are specialized licenses and permits that take time. So you need to depending on the line of business you are venturing into, you need to take that into account. There's also restrictive rental regime that you need to take into account. There's the work permit delays. It takes, you probably need to factor in significant amount of time depending on which country and the time as well. Then the cost of living for expatriates is high. So again, because if you are going to set up shop in the capital, then you need to be mindful of that. What really you should not do when setting up shop is try to avoid getting into many legal battles or contractual obligation upfront. Try to take it easy and probably go through partners so that you limit your contractual obligation. Don't rush to grant corporate leadership or governance to local ownership, because it is really important that you build trust and confidence in your local directors or the local partnership actors you choose to go with. Don't pay bribes. Avoid that. In terms of the human resource, managing of staff, I think this is important. In any business, you need the human capital. So again, lots of talent in the region in a number of sectors. And it depends from with country to country. There could be a different situation in terms of talent and human resource capacity. Between Kenya and Tanzania, you'll find that Kenya is advanced in terms of human resource capacity and talent at the regional level than Uganda, than Tanzania. But still, there's all the available talent still in Tanzania, for example, that you should be able to tap. There's of course.
No preparada para una foto.
Hello, somebody is on the.
Oye, de casualidad tienes
on the line.
audífonos.
Maybe. Okay, good. Thank you. There's a collectivistic mentality. So this is also something that you need to be mindful. These are labor organizations. So we have. Depending on which sector you choose to venture your business or focus your business onto, there are of course the labor organization, but there's another positive part of this, that in the region there's very strong business community. We have East Africa Business Council. We have in all the different countries, we have business communities, and they are very strong. So it would be very important that you explore to join these platforms, because they will immediately provide you with a lot of learning and sharing of experience. Again, it's really important to stay compliant, ensure the deductions, statutory deductions are paid in time. And from the beginning, aim to get professional help, get in terms of recruitment and in terms of auditors and lawyers, legal, ensure you get it right by engaging with the professionals. And we have in the region, we have Harambee. Harambee is just basically fundraising. So depending on which sectors you choose, there's always a lot of informal Harambees in the office or in whatever sector you are. People are more I can say people are more social, so they help each other, whether there's education Harambe, funeral Harambe, so things like that. So just be mindful of that. In terms of challenges, the they are talents, yes, but they are prohibitively expensive, and there's a lot of the gap between the most expensive accountant and the most affordable and the cheapest accountant is very wide. Is very wide. So again, it depends on which economy you'd want to play into. So just be mindful that there are a lot of talents, and they come at different prices. Operational managers and skilled technical labor, sometimes difficult to get, but again, this is where you need to use the local service providers to basically search for talent for you. This is important because then you are able to immediately get to move to take your business forward instead of having to do trial and error. It's important to get registered staff, especially for professional bodies like accounting, human resource, engineers. It's really important to get registered staff who are basically registered with their professional bodies. It is what you should really not do is remember to protect your business model, basically patent it, because of course people are outside here to steal your ideas and take it and replicate it. So remember to protect your business and brand. Of course, don't bring up tribal affiliation. There's the tribal ethnicity is a sensitive issue in this region, especially when it comes to staff, and it applies differently in different countries. And for example, in Kenya, there's a very strong ethnicity. In Tanzania, there's a very strong nationalistic tendency. So all these are things that you need to consider, especially when sourcing for the staff to run the business. In terms of banking and finance and tax, I think in the region has very effective financial services, and it is there are local accounting and compliance services available. Mobile banking is quite advanced in the region, especially Kenya is leading on that. In that, there's of course stable forex regulations, and it is easy to access forex, and of course to transfer capital is also easy. There's of course relative ease of internet banking, so you can be able to run your operations at the comfort of your office in any part of the world you are. And talking of finance and banking, compliance is maintaining compliance is important because of a number of factors. So it's really important that you stick to the lines and maintain financial controls, and because of the volatility of the local currency, the fluctuations, it is really important to maintain, to invoice in US dollars, the hard currency, and maintain a track of intercompany transaction. This is if you have a number of companies locally, or you are basically linking to the foreign company, the parent company. So maintain track, because there are issues of transfer pricing, which is important to ensure that you maintain at all times arm's length. So the challenges, of course, in order for you to operate a bank account in any of the jurisdiction in this region, you need a work permit. Of course, you need a work permit, you need a tax number. So that means that if the work permit takes long, then your operation may be delayed. So it becomes a challenge. There's relatively high taxes and possibly risk of double taxation. There are different tax regulations. So it's really important that from the onset, you have a talk with your auditor and understand the different tax regulations, so that you don't risk paying double tax or even triple or multiple. Raising capital is, of course, harder than in Europe, and the interest rates is in the range of 13% and above. So I can imagine for a business person from the Nordic countries, you would be the last to source financing from here. So because it's super expensive. But again, it is a challenge. As you should not get there on the wrong side with the tax authorities. I think that's really important, because more the government tax system is becoming more sophisticated day by day, because they are digitizing, they are ensuring that they are able to bring many of the untaxed into the tax bracket. They are also ensuring that basically no business operates without paying tax. So it's really not a it would not be a strategic move to get on the wrong side of the tax authority, especially at the beginning. Don't overlook traceability of payments. So any money you transfer, whether it's online or mobile, just know that it will be, the traceability possibility is very high. So just ensure that it is well accounted for, and it is, if there are tax requirements, it's done. We have the issue, of course, in terms of business, mobility is important for both goods and services. Now, in the region, the movement of goods and services are significantly improved. The infrastructure is perfect between the different ports. And of course, there's of course the increasing and wider regional markets opening up. We have in this region, we have East Africa Community. That's a common market, and there are of course a lot of benefits to that. We have COMESA, which is also a regional market platform. We also have the Africa Free Trade Agreement, which is also in force, though to the extent to which it has been utilized effectively, it's still new. So the regional mobility is quite easy, I must say. But then there are challenges. Of course, the cost and time needed for movement is still significantly high compared to international other countries. So I think it would really be important that you manage your time. You are able to manage the expectation when you are moving goods across. There's of course also different national standards. What is on paper, for example, East African Community or Common Market, it's don't take it the way it is in paper. I think when you are on the ground, depending on which sector, don't assume that it's easy to just move goods from Kenya to Tanzania or from Tanzania to Uganda. So it is there's a lot of still nationalistic tendency, protectionism. So you need to be aware of that. There's of course also competing common market structures. We have SADC, which is of course South Africa, is the Southern Africa, but then we have Tanzania, which is a member of SADC, but also a member of East Africa Community. So there's those kind of competing market structure at the regional level. So these are things that you really need to be mindful of. It's important to remain patient with authorities when you make your application, because sometimes they move at their pace. So it's really important to go with the flow when you are looking for your maybe clearance of goods at the port. So you need to be mindful of that. There is a strong sourcing locally. As I said, buy Uganda, build Uganda. Buy Rwanda, build Uganda. So as a business, when you are sourcing your goods and services locally, then you will be able to play well on the right side of government. So just as an advice, I would encourage that. Of course, you have to expect that timelines may not be met, so manage your expectation more practically. Don't fail to register your goods with all relevant institutions, because anything can happen. So don't take any shortcut when it comes to you are moving your goods from one point or from one country to the other. That ends my presentation, but just to mention that with our company Vizuri 360, we are basically facilitating international and local businesses set up shop in this region, and we offer quite a number of services, and a few of them, in terms of human resource, financial management, tax, legal, and office-based services. We provide this kind of services to a number of businesses interested in venturing into this market. I want to say thank you. I think we've managed it within time. Thomas, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom, for your very interesting presentations and all your valuable insights. I have a feeling that you could be going on for hours, but I can tell you it's of great value to us to hear all these experiences from somebody who's actually lived it firsthand. So thank you very much. So perhaps if you end your presentation, because then we can see all the faces of the participants as they prepare some questions. I have a first question, and I think it was interesting that you mentioned this trend of buying local, and a trend that is also in the government. So if you're a company that is delivering product to a public authority, what would you say is the chance of actually coming in as a foreign company and delivering goods and services to public authorities?
Thank you, Thomas. This is the chances is dependent on a number of factors. It will depend on your technical qualification as a company in terms of your capacity, technical capacity to deliver those services. So a number of government entities, they tender for services and goods. So you have to fulfill the terms of the tender, and the issue of buy local, buy local. Yes, it counts, but again, it depends on what service. For example, if you are looking for a service which is not really available locally, then of course you have the best chance if you are going to provide that technology innovation from somewhere else. So, but again, how do you blend to achieve buy locally is of course in terms of your expertise, the stuff that you are going to propose to implement the contract. So it would not disadvantage you, but it is an added value if you maintain and bring strongly the buy local, build local.
Okay.
In your tender.
So please raise your hand if you have a question. Yes, there's one from Simon.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much for a very pleasant presentation, Tom. This is Simon Lacour from Pesito, a small Danish startup, and we do have a lot of business in Uganda. We have a local production concept that we're trying to roll out in other countries in East Africa as well. How much does, because we are building from a local assembly perspective, because many of our components can simply not be sourced locally in the countries we are in. So we are trying to take the last part of the assembly to these countries, to our distribution partners in East Africa. How much does that mean, or how big an advantage is that to have such a concept as doing the final assembly locally in the countries? Now speaking of local.
Thank you, Simon. I think that's good. And again, just like I responded, when you are doing when you are in a venture which has an element of innovation which does not exist in the region, then of course the issue of local, buy local comes to the extent that you are able to build local capacity in assembling, because I would imagine that of course you will have some expertise from foreign expertise coming to train in some local staff to be able to do this assembly. So the innovation will be from a different part of the world, but the actual work will always be have the blend of international expertise and the local. So you are building the local capacity. So there's a wide interpretation on how this buy local is interpreted. I think you should not look at it as a hindrance at all. It covers both goods and services and the expertise.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, other questions from the audience? I have a question in the meantime.
Okay.
So in Access to Innovation, we have recently launched a new initiative where we try to look at different types of value chains, and that includes value chains in the agribusiness. And I just saw on your webpage that you have worked with this value chain approach as well. So can you just share a little bit about what is the importance of understanding the value chains, and do you have any kind of specific approach in trying to analyze these different value chains?
Thank you. You must have looked at it in our SustaiNet consulting website. We've done value chain analysis, but mainly in the agriculture, in the agro-based industry, and we've basically focused our experience on that in trying to understand the different value chains and how they are structured, and again, depending on which product you would be focusing on, we would be able to provide you with a more specific advice on those value chains, because there are a number of factors. So when we look at value chain, we basically look at the interrelations in the entire supply chain and of that particular product. We look at the different linkages. So again, if you need more specific information, then we can be able to get the exact products that you are focusing on. Then we can give you a more specific advice. But yes, we've had experience in that.
Okay. Please raise your hand. I have another question, and that relates a little bit to what you talked about, this buying local, because in many cases when we work with these Scandinavian or Danish companies and they need to get a foothold on a local market, one of the things that we often discuss is this idea of creating a joint venture with a local company. And that seems to kind of feed well into this this trend of buying local. Can you reflect a little bit on about this the possibilities and perhaps the advantages and threats of creating these joint ventures with local companies?
Yeah, that's a good point. Creating joint ventures, of course, it's very good in many ways. First of all, you are benefiting from already the local structure that is already established, and you are basically creating a platform where you can be able to tap into the lessons which are learned from the local, and then you are able to add value so that you can be able to improve and basically enter the market smoothly without having to start from scratch. So when if you relate that to buy local, I think it fits in directly because already the local company is already there. So you are forming a venture, and it of course depends on which sector and which enterprise you will be venturing into. I can say if it is a venture, if it's a sector which is very technical where you will need innovation to be imported, definitely still you may not be able to get the raw material locally, but again, it is we are talking of goods and services, so it is the building of the local capacity within the venture, and of course having a plan to ensure that you understand also the supply chain, because maybe you've just not the supply chain for some of the raw material could be sourced from maybe in Ethiopia, which is just near here, or in Uganda or in Tanzania if they focus Kenya. So understanding the local supply chain, ensuring that you understand the local talents which is available, the human resource capacity which is available within the sector that you are going to venture into within the joint venture. I think all this blended together would be ensure that you play very positively within the buy local the vision of this,
Okay, thank you. There's a question from Paul.
Yes, thank you so much, Tom. This has been really interesting. So as I mentioned, I was just on kind of our first company visit to Nairobi to start to establish ourselves there. And one of the things that you mentioned was really interesting. You said to fly under the radar. And I was wondering if you could go into a bit more detail on that as to what you meant.
Yeah, thank you. I think when I say fly under the radar, many times the companies, especially international, they will tend to do their registration very fast, because registering your company is the easiest. But that does not mean that you immediately after registration you get to start operating, because for you to start operating, then you need to ensure that you have the financial system working. You have a bank account. Then you have the local staff, the staff capacity, because then you will need to first of all ensure that you secure your work permit. So that's way after you've got your registration. So you'll need to get your work permit, which you don't know how long it could take, 3 to 6 months. And after the work permit, then that's when you can be able to functionally operate and run a bank account. So in the meantime, because you went first for the registration, the local system is recognizing that you've already registered. So they, of course, expect that you are going to start filing your returns. So what that means is that assuming that you face any challenge, especially with not opening your bank account, then it goes beyond 1 year, then you are already starting to incur some expenses, you know, relating to maintaining your registration. So this is partly why it's really important to fly under the radar until you understand. And the other point is that flying under the radar is, of course, you need to understand the sector quite well. You need also to do a bit of market survey. You've understood your competition, you've understood your supply chain, and you've also understood your clients. And once that is all clear, then you are able to start the process of operationalizing your company. Because when you just move, you register, you've not done all this, then you play into the hands of so many things, because even the competition, you'll not be able to, they'll know that you are there. So they'll learn your technology very fast, your ideas, and then they are already in the market. They'll only improve on their products. So flying under the radar here is just for you to take time to understand before rushing to register. It's not everything, just rushing to register. It doesn't add any value in your balance sheet or in your P&L immediately.
Okay, so have a strategy in place and a timeline in terms of, yeah, don't just register and then assume that this will be everything. I also wanted to
Needs to be a final question. We already passed our time, so a quick question and quick answer.
Does anyone else have a question?
Go ahead.
I had one more. Around recruiting, like you mentioned, turn to the professionals first. We've also been doing that. It's been a good strategy so far. Do you recommend using recruiters? And if so, you know, who or what are the sort of right characteristics to look out for in a recruiter?
Yeah, I would recommend that you use local, basically local service providers, because they are able to, you just tell them this is the talent you're looking for, and then they look for that talent for you and just give you an already made talent that you are looking for. So I would recommend that you use these service providers. For a number of reasons. I've seen a situation where companies come, because of they met somewhere at the airport, they start engaging, and before you know it, things are going south.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom, for taking the time to share your insights. That has been very interesting and of high value to us. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and for Paul, you are free to reach out through Visuri 360, our company. We can be able to do that for you.
Yeah, and I think that is for everybody to reach out for you. Yeah. Thank you. And let me just do half a minute of advertising for our next Access to Innovation talk. That is on the 11th of March. And we will have Professor Arne Remmen, who will talk about circular economy and the relevance of that in an East African context. But once again, Tom, thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for everyone else to join us as well. So have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.